So hi everybody. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel today. I am super passionate about channel sales, partner sales. I've worked in sales for about 10 years. Most of that time I've been doing some sort of channel or partner sales. So excited to talk with Patrick, Paul, and Vanessa today. So I am the head of network convergence at Carta. I've been on our channel team for about 2.5 years, and I joined it we didn't have a channel team at Carta. So we were going through all of those motions of what does a partner look like for Carta? How do we reach out to them? How do we structure the program? And kind of saw it grow to what it is today, which is a 20 plus person unit within Carta that covers not only our US territory, but Canada, Cayman Islands, UK, Singapore, Australia. And to me, there's so much value in talking to the people out in the network that are talking to your customers that may also be using your product. And they're kind of, a whole army of, salespeople, partners out there that help you sell your product and value to your customers. So with that, I want to pass it off to our panelists to introduce themselves. So Vanessa, do you want to kick it off? And then we'll just kind of go around the circle with intros here really quick.
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Young. I have been in this industry for a little over 15 years, primarily on the channel side. I've worked in channels from small to medium business to service provider. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and currently I am a partner sales manager for our technology alliances at Zscaler.
Not sure who's next in your circle, Kelly.
Yeah, I realized that. Sorry. Thank you, Vanessa. Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Awesome. So my name is Paul Rios. I work at HubSpot. I'm the director of sales for Latin America Direct at the moment, but I do have ample experience with channel sales in Latin America, mostly, but also in the US, both on the sales side and also on the servicing side. So we can go deeper into that later in the panel.
Thank you, Paul. And Patrick, you want to wrap up our intros?
Sure. And these are 10-minute intros 2-minute intro or less. Okay, got it. Patrick Keating, I'm delighted to be with the panel, honored to be on this on the stage with these folks, and great to be with all of you. In brief, been doing partner sales, mostly with Microsoft for the past 14 plus years. And it's mostly in the consulting world, professional services world. And now most recently, I've joined a company called TDS to lead the global co-sell with Cisco. So that's a little bit about me. Looking forward to learning from all of you and the great discussion to follow.
Thanks, Patrick. So to kick things off here, I want to start with a really broad question of what is a partner ecosystem? I think it means something a bit different at every company. I worked at a reseller prior to Carta, and what my partner was in that situation was all of the products we were selling on behalf of those other companies, right? We didn't have our own product, so we were actually the partner to them. And now at Carta, right, our partner network consists of law firms putting their clients on Carta, or investors, et cetera. So I'd love to hear kind of what your definition of a partner ecosystem is, and maybe an example of the type of partners that you guys are working with in your current partner programs. And I'll go back to Patrick to start this one off.
Sure. So, I think of it as a network of complementary organizations that really add value above 1 + 1 equaling 2, right? So what are those partners out there that can be a force multiplier for us? Where are the gaps in our solution set for the market that we want to target and who we want, and the market opportunity that we want to address? And so when we think about that, we think about, at TDS, we think about how do we engage with the largest of the large enterprise organizations. Well, we can do that really well by partnering efficiently with some of the largest technology providers out there: VMware, IBM, Unisys, of course, Cisco. So working with those folks that already play in that place of the largest possible enterprise, because our technology really is most valuable around the largest scale cloud migrations. It's for those reasons that we want to partner with those folks, and that we do. But in other situations, if you're a large organization like a Microsoft, you want to partner with VARs where they can be, feet on the street and really get the job done. So it depends on the organization that you're coming from and how you want to partner. But that's how I think about the ecosystem generally.
Awesome. I think one thing I want to say, VAR, value added reseller, for people that don't know that acronym. I love what you said about force multipliers. I find that you find those in any situation, in any industry that you're trying to sell in. There's always going to be someone out there that's going to be a 1-point node that can be multiple nodes once you get to them. So you have to find those people. Thanks, Patrick. Vanessa, you want to go next? And then we'll wrap up with Paul if you want to just jump in when Vanessa wraps up.
Yeah, I think Patrick laid the groundwork pretty well on what a partner ecosystem is. But just to kind of add above and beyond that, it's really a way to amplify your solution and kind of your digital footprint. And when we look at it from a technology perspective, it's what is going to give our customers the best solution, what's going to complement our solution, what's going to give them a more comprehensive solution, and what's going to enhance what we're providing them. So when we think about that, those are the types of partners that we want to pull into our ecosystem. And it's really an exchange, in addition to an extension of your business. So they're providing services on top of what you're able to offer the customer.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all great perspectives. I think I would take it a level, like zoom out a little bit and go a level higher, and give a broader answer that a partner ecosystem is basically what you need it to be to accomplish for your company either marketing goals, sales goals, or delivery goals. So for example, HubSpot has HubSpot for Startups program, where we partner with accelerators and venture firms to get access to startups, right? So in that sense, those partnerships are meant to get us access to the market, right? So instead of maybe like outbound selling or even inbound selling, there are niches and pockets of the market that are hard to reach with just those tactics. And so you have partners who basically bring you lead flow. Then we have other partners who help us to sell. Basically, like Patrick said, HubSpot is purely an inside selling organization. We don't do field sales, but in some markets, and also as you go up market, there's an expectation of more in-person selling. And so our partners amplify our sales force. And like Patrick said, they can be our boots on the ground when we cannot. And then I guess a couple other things that sometimes they do is for complex RFPs where maybe our legal doesn't sign off on our participation, we can participate in an RFP. That's to Kelly's point, what the acronym is, like requisite for proposal, something like that. And then also I cover Latin America, as I said earlier. We sell only in dollars. Some customers want to buy in local currency, so partners help there as like a financial intermediary. And then on the service delivery side, again, things that Vanessa and Patrick both mentioned. If you have a complex implementation or migration from, say, Salesforce.com to HubSpot, maybe it's something that is beyond really the capabilities of my services team to deliver. And so a partner can get much more involved, maybe go in person and train 20, 30, 50 users at a time. And so they amplify our services team. So for the audience, which I understand to be a lot of startup founders and leaders, think more broadly. Don't just consider a partner program to amplify your services or even just your sales. It can also be used to generate access to the market. So think what you need, whether it's marketing, sales, or service. It could be all three, and then find partners generally who are good or can solve for each of those pains. Occasionally, you can find someone across the board, but those are pretty hard to find. Usually partners are more specialized than just like really broad and lacking depth.
Thanks, Paul. I think that was a really good example of how a partner can mean several different things, considering what you think their value add is going to be for you. Are they helping you sell? Are they helping giving you access to potential customers? Are they a value add in some other way if they're helping you do an RFP or get in front of late stage clients, right? There's a lot of different, definitions of what a partner can be for you. And so that's a really good segue into the next question of why do partners work with you? I think in this first question we answered, why do we work with partners, right? What are we looking for them to help us do? But why do partners work with you? And I think for this one, Vanessa, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So I think partners work with us because of the value that we can bring to their business and to their customers. So once again, it's as much as they are an extension of our business, we want to be an extension of theirs. So, what can we do to enhance, what they're bringing to the market? What can we do in terms of expanding their potential market or helping them meet their objectives? So I think it's about, finding those areas of synergy where we can both build into each other. So I think that that's important. And then also it's a way to drive additional revenue, obviously. So, the more you build stronger partnerships with a particular technology provider or OEM, et cetera, there's lots of incentives that go along with that, whether it's in the form of, rebates. There's some really great, industry rebates programs when you talk about different technology companies out there. So I think it's another way to get to their bottom line.
Awesome. And Patrick, do you want to jump in next?
Sure. We're a complementary solution for our partners. In the example of Cisco, they don't necessarily have a ton of folks that migrate applications, large scale application migration from on premises to cloud or other such migration capabilities. And so, as such, we bring that capacity, that gap to them, helping them to keep in the game of those critical conversations, which are often an extension of their advisory dialogue and the strategy looking forward. In addition, I look at their portfolio, their ever expanding cloud portfolio, we really complement the Intersight platform really well. So it's really important that you not only look at the engagement of the sellers and where the sales organization needs to stay engaged to stay relevant and retain account control. You also need to look at the solution set if it's a product company and say, hey, is there an opportunity for integration? Is there an opportunity for a joint offering here? And we're seeing both. So that's the reason we're getting thankfully more and more attention from that partner. And I think it's emblematic of the kind of engagement one would look for as best in class.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, right, that's the word partner, right? It's a partnership. So there's value on both sides. Paul, do you want to wrap us up on this one?
Yeah, I would just actually go back to Patrick's first response. Just as we're looking for force multipliers, so are our partners. And so, the best matches are when we can be each other's mutual force multipliers. And I would take the same framework approach, right? Where do these partners need value, or where do they have maybe gaps or weaknesses? Sometimes HubSpot has a pretty good brand, especially in Latin America. And so to a partner, we give them that marketing access, perhaps, right, to get lead flow, or we help them to close deals. And so you have to find, kind of try to fit the pegs with the holes, and like where are our holes and their pegs and vice versa, and make it match, right? But generally speaking, what makes a good partnership or what's in it for them is can you help them generate revenue where they were unable to do so previously? And that's when you get extremely happy and loyal partners. So at HubSpot, for example, we never ever require exclusivity from our partners, and sometimes they're surprised at that. especially in Latin America, I think culturally it's a little bit different than partnerships up here. And we tell them, no, like we're going to earn your loyalty through the value we provide and the revenue and impact we can have to your bottom line. And that should be sufficient to keep you, loyal to us and engaged and happy. So I'll just kind of wrap it up by saying, put yourself in their shoes and try to find out what they need and see if you can actually service that or serve that. And then good things will happen.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that this is a great time to jump over to a question from our audience. So I'm going to read the question and then we can kind of talk about what our answers can be. So this question is, how can early stage venture approach building partnerships? Not straight away with sales, perhaps, knowing that through these partnerships, we can gain larger ecosystem and potential customers. So to kind of condense that question down, I think that the main point of that question is, how early can you start a partnership program, or how do you approach building partnerships when you're at the really early stage? I think for me, speaking with a lot of founders during my time at Carta, when you have a really small team internally, why not find that partner who's going to help you multiply that, going back to that multiplier? Why not find that partner that's going to give you access to 10 customers rather than going to each one of those 10 customers individually? You'll save so much time. So, to jump in with my answer, it's never too early to think about partnerships and start to try to find your partners. And with that, Paul, do you want to kick us off on this one, and we'll just kind of go backwards through the circle this time?
Yeah, sure. Actually, to jump on or build on your comment, I advise a lot of early stage startups on go-to-market strategies. And ironically enough, I often advise not starting with channel too early in your life cycle and kind of proving out that value model to what you're selling and delivering on a one-to-one or directly to the end customer. Channel sales can give you extraordinary scale, but it comes with some complexity that you probably don't have when you just own the entirety of the selling process directly. And when you're really early on, say like sub $1 million in revenue, or maybe even like sub 10 million in revenue, you have to iterate incredibly fast to really fine tune what is your value proposition and what you're delivering to the customer. Make sure that there's product market fit. And things of that nature. So I would just caution that a little bit. And I'm not sure if I actually nailed the question as much as build on Kelly's comment there.
Yeah, I will just piggyback on that. I think it's definitely important to establish your value and be very clear about that, and then also be very clear about your objectives. For why do you want to bring partners into the process? What are you looking for them to do? What are you looking for them to add to? What value are you looking for them to add to you and to your end customer? But kind of early on, I think one of the things that partners can also bring is insight. Insight into particular markets or customers that you're working with. If they've been in that market longer than you have, then they can provide feedback to you as you're kind of honing your solution or offering to your market.
And I would just add, I think all the comments have been spot on. What I would say is that there are certainly scenarios within which it's unavoidable, even at an early stage. And I'll give a quick example. In a past life, I was way too early to the cloud, which was a lot of fun. Worked for a company called Cloud Strategies, which was one of the earliest partners doing Office 365 implementations, migrations, what have you, even before it was called Microsoft 365 back in the BPOS days. So really early, a little bit of the Wild West. But when you're a solution provider like that, and the solution that you provide is a Microsoft solution, you can't help but engage Microsoft. You're compelled to do so. And so at that point, how do you do it? You leverage your network, you leverage your employees, you leverage your board, you reach out any which way but Sunday to get the attention that you need. and fall in line quick with their sales motions. Get your act together with how does Microsoft, how does another player that you're thinking of, the questioner here, how do they go to market? How do they sell? And how do we fit in and play a role and add value, even at our size? And at the size of that company, we were only 15 to 20 people, but we were able to execute based on the fact that we knew folks at Microsoft and we knew how to fit. So if you don't know those things or don't have those relationships, find folks that do, and get curious and get busy with it.
Thanks, Patrick. To expand on a couple of the comments that were made about the complexity of partner-client relationships, I'd love to talk a little bit about that complexity, and maybe what are a couple things to be mindful of, or where have you found the best strategy sort of to set up partnerships and avoid some of the trappings of those complexities. Vanessa, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. So it's tough. I think in channels, a lot of times I've heard it described as sort of a marriage counselor role, right? Like, so you're between your partners and between sales and trying to make sure that everyone plays together and plays well. I've also had a partner describe the channel as, typically an OEM provider, they want their partner to be married to them, but they want to date around. And so there's lots of challenges and complexity, I think, that you face the larger that your channel gets. But I think the most important thing to think about is, understanding that they have to run a business as well. And being cognizant of, kind of where a client relationship came from. Like, did they bring the client to you? Is it a client that, a relationship that you started? But just trying to think about things from that perspective. And just, making sure that, you're talking through things with the partners and that you're setting expectations up front. And just being, I don't know if honorable is the word, but you're not talking across the aisle, or whatever those things are. What you would want them to do if you are on the other side. So I think you just have to have a lot of integrity when you're dealing with complex situations like that, and I think being as upfront as you can. Hey, look, there's another situation that we're dealing with this client, and we really can't bring you in. We love to work with you. This is just not a good account for us to work with. And letting it be that. So I think as upfront as you can be, bring as much integrity as possible to the process and visibility. I think, will help you navigate around those. And I think partners will respect that. I think majority of the time they'll respect that if you're upfront with them and try to do the right thing. I think when challenges come up, they'll be more willing to kind of work through that with you and give you leeway.
I'll just add, I couldn't agree more. In those situations where the complexity is, there's, an existing relationship or some other wrinkle, that integrity and transparency is critical. I've been on the other side of relationships where that wasn't the case, and there were challenges, to be sure. When we think about the broader complexity of these relationships, I think that we've got to be realistic here. For partners like a Microsoft, with whom I have the most experience, it's only getting regrettably more complex to engage. And why is that? Because I'll answer, because Microsoft 365 is about 80-90% in the mid-market and enterprise, and so that's just a renewal activity. Or an expansion activity, and the real focus is on Azure. So and a couple of remaining workloads in Microsoft 365. So from an enterprise perspective, so really that organization is moved inside in the Midwest, mostly in Dallas, but also in North Dakota. So that it makes for a very challenging circumstance where the sales folks that you used to engage in the field have now gone inside and basically gone away. And then the programmatic engagement has become a bit, a bit challenged as well, to be frank. So with a lot of offshore resources being leveraged to guide one through the engagement. So there's, time zone differences and all kinds of challenges related to that. So it's really, if you're starting a relationship with a large partner of that nature, just know if it's feeling frustrating or it's feeling difficult, just know someone that's been doing it for 14 years, it is difficult. It can be done. They do want to partner, and there's a lot of opportunity to do so there. But just, it's important to have realistic expectations and know the groundwork as you're getting in, because the stage, it's a pretty complex field to navigate, to say the least.
Yeah, to just to build on those points, I think integrity and just transparent conversation are just paramount. That Vanessa mentioned, but then also to kind of combine what Vanessa mentioned with what Patrick mentioned, relationships change in time. And so where you could have been a force multiplier to Microsoft for their Office 365 product, as their strategic roadmap changes over time, and then they start to lean more into Azure, you're no longer potentially as valuable to them as you once were. And so having transparent conversations with your intermediaries at the partner, should help to try to find alignment, when it kind of goes wonky, and see if there's an opportunity to help them with their new strategic vision or their new product, right? With Azure or whatever's coming, maybe even behind that. So I think that's something that needs to be called out, is that it changes. So a little story that I was going to mention in a previous answer is, we had a really prolific partner in Latin America who was really helping us with sales, and they were boots on the ground and helping us to close business. The problem is that we were so efficient at driving value to them through pipeline that they stopped generating pipeline of their own. And they stopped helping us to close new business. And so again, as this is another small example of loss of alignment, where we were relying on them to generate pipeline, they were relying on us to help close deals. We got too good at the latter, and they stopped generating us pipeline. So we had to have a pretty frank conversation with them around where each of us was seeing value and how we can realign to both of us maintain generating value for each other. And last thing I would just mention is being really good at mapping stakeholders on both sides. So, for example, partners in HubSpot's ecosystem, they impact the customer success team and their metrics around customer retention, revenue retention. They impact the marketing team around their SLA to drive demand and leads and QLs and things of that nature. They impact the sales team and their ability to close deals and generate revenue. So it can get pretty complicated pretty fast. So I would definitely put someone in charge of kind of running point, mapping the orgs on both sides, and make sure that the right people in both organizations are connecting, and there's full transparency. Just a lesson I've learned the hard way is, I run in sales. I've been 10 years running sales, and on occasion I've kind of lost sight of potential impact to CS of some of the decisions that I've made. And then you have some really tough internal conversations with your own colleagues around, like, hey man, I understand you did XYZ, helps you out, but that kind of puts me in a bad corner. And then that's even beyond just the relationship with the partner. Now you have like a little fire internally that you have to deal with. So mapping out the relationships and understanding kind of the dynamics on both sides, I think is paramount.
That was great, Paul. I love that point about being mindful of your internal teams too. I think in partnerships, sometimes you create a new partnership that brings in a whole lot of activity all at once. And I've done the same thing where I've forgotten to have those internal conversations with the folks that need to onboard those clients and then support them. So that's a great point. And I think to kind of summarize all three of your responses, it's like treat other people how you want to be treated and communicate well, right? There is a question from the audience I want to pull up, and it may be a repeat of some of the points you guys already made, but just in case you have a specific example. So this has to do with, a situation where you have multiple partners and one solution. So in a joined up customer solution with multiple partners, what challenges arise from presenting the solution using each partner to explain their value proposition? So Patrick, Vanessa, Paul, have any of you been in a situation where there's a multiple partner sales solution, and how have you handled making sure, that your value is added or communicated and that the other partners are as well?
I can go first here. Generally speaking, HubSpot isn't enterprise enough where this happens a whole lot. From my experience, though, in the territories that I've covered, this has come up a few times. And what I would say is, what was successful for us is collaborating with the partners beforehand, strategizing, having meetings, and then presenting a joint solution to the customer. Because oftentimes the customer doesn't want to buy like 3 or 4 puzzle pieces to then put them together. He wants you to deliver the entire puzzle. And so the better you can align with the multiple partners, which isn't easy, before you actually engage the customer, I think the better off you will be, because I've seen this go well and I've seen it go sour. So when we align well with partners and we do like joint pricing, for example, and sometimes that can get super crazy because they have different discounting thresholds, we have different discounting thresholds, and we're trying to share the same pie. And going back to like transparency and integrity, you want to share but not share too much, and you want to make sure that you're not giving up all your margin and the partner is not. So it can lead to some pretty interesting conversations, but you want to nail down like a total cost of ownership that you can then present to the customer, because then if they have to do the heavy lifting to try to figure out the total cost of ownership by cobbling together 3 or 4 proposals from different partners, you're putting the burden on them. So if you guys can do it, better. Now, where I've seen it go south is exactly that, like a partner who wasn't willing to engage in that conversation, kind of just went solo, gave their own proposal with their own pricing. They didn't really care what any of the other partners or players were trying to accomplish. And, we just came in like way over budget, and the customer just nixed the proposal from all the partners involved because we couldn't collaborate effectively to present one joint value proposition with one easy to understand total cost of ownership. Now maybe that's a very like niche response, but hopefully that's useful.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think being very clear on that better together story, like the pieces, the value that each partner is bringing together, to your point, Paul, to create that bigger picture for the customer, but also being clear on what parts don't play well, because a lot of times you have, pieces of a solution or things that companies do separately that may be competing or just not, may not align that well. So I think, having those conversations beforehand and being very clear about where those things are. So, and being able to answer those questions if they come up. Customers are smart. Google is free. So there's a lot of information that customers do on their own coming into conversations like that. So being able to answer those questions on where you play well, but also where you don't.
I would agree with all the points made. I would just add a quick story. When you're working with multiple partners, it's easy to feel as though you're bringing enough value simply by getting everybody together in the room and coordinating and planning the discussion. The challenge for me in a specific case was I had worked with this client prior. I had actually helped him get his role as a CIO, working for a friend of mine at a pretty hot startup here in New England. And he wasn't getting the answers he needed from one of the partners. And I had to press pause. I had to do some, unnatural acts of navigating that partner and escalating above and beyond the resource that was failing to answer the questions. And I wasn't as quick to do that as perhaps I should have been, given the prior relationship and what we had done together. So I learned from that experience that even though you're doing an incredible job of coordinating everybody and quarterbacking the opportunity, you're not doing enough if you're not advocating fully for the client and making sure that the solution gets sold as he or she internally is trying to sell it for you and with you. So it's really important not to lose sight of that piece.
Excellent. I'm going to do one more question about complex partner ecosystems from the audience before we move on to another topic. And I think this one plays into something that was mentioned previously as well, from Paul when it comes to non-exclusive agreements. So some partners will be non-exclusive with you and may also offer solutions from your competitors. What challenges does that bring? So Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about those non-exclusive partnerships and how HubSpot handles, having competitors kind of in the ring with you in those situations? And then Vanessa and Patrick, we can hear from you and when Paul wraps up.
Yeah, sure. I just really love that concept that Patrick presented of the force multiplier. And so I think that when you're dealing with non-exclusive partners, if you don't have a differentiator or you cannot provide a better force multiplier than somebody else, the partner can and will oftentimes present the competitor's solution above your own. So I think it goes back to understanding, what value am I adding this partner? What do they need that I can offer them that perhaps others cannot, And so there's some partners or there's some organizations that we've chosen not to partner with before because we just know that for their niche or their customer focus or their market focus, we don't have a strong differentiator in that area. And that's okay. You have to know, what your product can do and what it can't do. And so we were approached by a partner who wanted to distribute on our behalf. And we didn't really have anything to offer them, where 1 + 1 could be greater than 2. And we knew that we would just be like another logo in their like buffet of options. And they're just going to show up to a customer and say, hey, here's this really cool list of options. Like, look at all these fancy logos I can sell you. And that wasn't really going to do anything for us and move the needle. So we just willfully walked away from that one. Now there's other ones where we've ripped, I guess, basically partners away from the competition, and they used to promote a competitor's product. We came in and convinced them that we had a better force multiplier, that we can add more value to them, that we can more effectively cover their blind spots or their weak spots, convinced them of the fact, and then we had to deliver. And sometimes we delivered well, sometimes not so well, and those partners drifted back to, pushing the other solution above our own. That's basically my experience in that area, Kelly.
Yeah, I don't know that I have too much more to add to what Paul said, but I mean, just as you have to sell your differentiation to a customer, a lot of times you have to do the same to partners. I mean, they can sell whoever they want. So you got to make sure that you are providing value from a solution standpoint, but also from a relationship standpoint. I mean, when you develop a strong relationship with people, it goes back to the old adage, people buy from people that they like. I mean, people want to work with people that they like. So if you're consistently adding value to that partner, then I think, the more that they'll want to work with you and the more that they'll understand your value and be able to position that over, something else that they might have in their portfolio.
Yeah, I'll agree and say, goes back to Vanessa raising integrity, right? If we understand the rules of engagement, if we know, with as much transparency as possible, who's doing what, where, and then that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, certainly we want to win over the partner so that we become the top of the list and the solution that is thought of first and hopefully last. But if the rules of engagement are clear, we're transparent about what we're doing, the opportunity to register opportunities, that should all be okay. But there are bound to be conflicts, and that's where the marriage counselor part of our roles really comes in, to be sure.
Yeah, great point. So let's shift gears a little bit here. There's a couple questions from the audience, and I also had one written down about how to build the team. So to kind of move from the outward complexity of partner ecosystems to, if you're a founder and you're looking to build out your partner team internally, how do you go about building that team? Is there a specific person or type of person or experience that you look for if you're looking to hire that person that's going to build out your partner program at your company? And Vanessa, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. So I think you want to look for people who can connect the dots and see how things overlap and play together and are able to create synergy from that. I think you also need people who are influencers, right? So a big part of channels is, providing guidance and on why a partner will want to work with us. Or as in the last example, we talked about a partner having a competitive solution. So being able to influence a partner, to want to work with you as you're, I used to work for Cisco. We'd have new solutions coming out all the time. And so working with a partner to help them understand, hey, here's why you want to invest resources to learn this new solution and bring it on board. I mean, we're constantly doing that. So I think the two major things from my perspective is somebody who's able to connect to people and then connect the larger vision, and then somebody who can be an influencer.
Awesome. Thanks, Vanessa.
Also, sorry, one other thing. Influencing the partner, but also influencing inside sale in our direct sales as well too. So a lot of my job as a in the channel has also been to help our internal teams understand, why you don't want to take this direct, why you want to work with a partner, what value that they can bring. So the influencer piece, I think, goes both ways.
Yeah, I think partnership people are definitely people. That's a great point. Patrick, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I think Vanessa's answer is a tough act to follow. So I'll simply say that as I think about folks in that role, I really think of all the things that Vanessa said. I also think about people that are ready and willing to take risks and think big. If we're going to engage, partners like Microsoft and Cisco, we've got to have the confidence to think as big as they do, and leverage and talk about solutions that are, at their level. And that is not necessarily a natural act when you're at a 50 or 100 person company, and sometimes smaller, right? So we need folks that are ready and willing to engage and at that level. And I think that starts really by staying curious, right? We have to stay curious about the opportunities and look at the whole picture, look at this holistically, and walk into this never saying things like I often hear, oh, I'm just the sales guy or gal, or I'm just a partner person, usually in an audience of technical folks that really understand that they have a critical skill set and will add value if they can take a holistic approach and really determine the most valuable points of entry with that partner. So I'm looking for folks that have that level of confidence and are ready to think big and engage.
Yeah, I'd highlight that Vanessa and Patrick's experiences or responses are maybe at the more enterprise end of the spectrum, where you want more depth than breadth. HubSpot plays a little bit more on the other end, or to stop using HubSpot as an example, Intuit also goes more for breadth than depth. So Intuit, they rely a lot on accountants, on a lot of like solo accountants and small practices to push their products. And so there it's about, having thousands upon thousands of channels, not just, a deep strategic relationship with, say, Microsoft, right? So just to maybe broaden the answer set a little bit to the other end of the spectrum, at HubSpot, we focus on hunters and farmers. And so we have two different teams. And so, the hunters are more kind of like pure sales almost, where they have quotas or targets on how many new partners they can bring into the ecosystem each month. And then you have farmers who work with those channels to make them productive. And so, can we minimize time to resell? Can we increase resell frequency? Can we increase average ticket size? They do a lot of training, development, things of that nature. And then we do have a partner team in the more enterprise space that generates partnerships with the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn. That team sits out in San Francisco as close as possible to those organizations. And that's more traditional biz dev, right? Relationship building and a lot of the things that Vanessa and Patrick mentioned. But I just kind of wanted to balance that with a little bit more like the less enterprising, in case that could be relevant to the audience there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for giving us the other side of that as well. I want to pitch another kind of hypothetical situation to you guys. If you had to reach out to a partner, let's say, you've mapped out who this best partner would be for you, and you have not engaged with them previously and you're trying to get in touch, what is the best way for a company to present themselves to get that partner's attention? Or how would you go about trying to initiate that conversation? What does that kind of first outreach look like? Patrick, do you want to start us on this one?
Sure. So, it really depends on the organization that you're trying to partner with and the organization that you represent, right? So in our case, we had a member of the board, of our board, reach out to, very senior SVP level person at Cisco. And that started the dialogue, and things have sort of rolled into my direction, and now I've got the ball and I'm running with it. So it really depends. I would say if you're a startup, a really true startup, you've look at it sounds very tactical. Some of this stuff is not fancy, folks, but look for any way that you can connect, any line of entry that you can find, especially to that mid and mostly senior level folks at the organization that you aspire to engage. Because just like with any sales process, the higher you start, the more likely you're going to get buy-in that's needed for a successful outcome. So I would say aim high, and don't be bashful. Be somewhat aggressive. And if at first you don't succeed, that's probably a sign that you just need to keep trying, because it's going to take more than a few knocks to break down those large doors.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm probably going to botch this data point, but I think it's something like on average, cold outreach takes like 18 touches before someone gets back to you. So whenever I'm talking with early stage founders, and I've often heard like, oh, well, I emailed them once and they didn't respond. I'm like, oh no, you got to email them several more times and probably call them over the weekend, maybe try a text message, whatever you need to do. So they think that's a great point. Don't be bashful. Paul, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to a sales guy here, first and foremost. So two things I would say. I like a high-low strategy. So you do have to go after the decision makers, which actually I would caution there. I'm a big fan of Gong.io's blog. And so they talk a lot about how there's no longer really this concept of a decision maker. It's more about a DMC, a decision-making committee. So you definitely have to aim high at the individuals whom you think are in the DMC, but also aim low where access is sometimes easier to gain. So, these partnership organizations have, they have the people at the top, but they're hierarchical perhaps, and have other people at other positions who, their jobs is to bring in new partners or get measured on something along those lines. And sometimes access in there and then working your way up helps, or you kind of get access to both. And then you triangulate internally. So I would say I'm a fan of the high-low, and also mapping the organization. One thing a lot of founders that I talk to, I think sometimes muck up a little bit, is they pick this one person who has like partnerships in their title, and that's the only person that they work. There's other people, like think about, is the partnership with that company, are you hoping to help them with marketing, with sales, or services, right? Let's say it's services. Well, guess what? The head of services might also be interested to hear what you're going to say and would eventually be looped into that conversation anyways. So don't put all your eggs in one basket going after the partnerships head. go after the other relevant functional leaders who are likely to be involved in the conversation at some point, and you might gain access through there first.
I would just add, be creative in your strategy. Think outside of the box. I mean, these folks, may be getting lots of emails, on a weekly basis from other folks like you. So, whether it's, doing your research, is there a networking group that they belong to that you happen to know somebody else in that you can get an introduction that way? I know a lot of people did a lot of creative things, during COVID. Well, it was still in COVID, but during 2020, sending, Uber Eats gift cards and say, hey, I'd love to do a virtual lunch with you. Or, there are lots of different, strategies out there, that don't cost money. But, I think really doing your research and trying to figure out other connection points kind of outside just the direct connection that may be another way in for you.
All good points. I can't believe we got, this far into the conversation and COVID just came up now. But
I just add one thing to Vanessa's point. Sorry, Kelly. Video prospecting works really well. So if you guys haven't heard of like Loom or Vidyard, those we've seen a tremendous success when you send a very personalized video to somebody.
Excellent. I love this conversation. I could sit here and talk with you guys all day, but I want to make sure I save enough time for this last question. So I'd love to hear, a partner success story or something that you were able to accomplish that you would not have been able to if that partner wasn't in that situation with you. So if that could kind of be in any other, last thoughts you want to throw in there, but I think a great way to kind of wrap up this conversation would be to hear those awesome success stories. So anyone want to kick us off on that note?
I'd be happy to, if I could.
Go ahead, Patrick. Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I was contacted by a friend that works within Microsoft, and they had a new opportunity for piloting some Intune technology. Technology is really not important, but pilot program through Microsoft Consulting Services, and it was for the Bridgeport Public Schools, which is one of the highest need school districts up here in the Northeast. We were able to be the implementation partner, boots on the ground, whereas MCS did not have local resources to that. That resulted not only in the successful transformation of their computer labs, but also a six-figure engagement for us, fully paid for by Microsoft, and Microsoft video case study highlighting the solution, and written case study within which I'm quoted. So when we think about these opportunities, it's 1 + 1 greater than 2, and it's not just for each other. It's also for the client and the broader social implications. So when we think about that, we think about shared value. That's really an opportunity to deepen the partnership, deepen a sense of purpose, and really ignite a great deal of enthusiasm and market awareness. So we got all of that from that solution. It was a great success, and something I feel deeply passionate about and excited to talk about. So yeah, those are the greatest of successes, when we not only make each other successful, but we can do some good as well.
Yeah, that's a great story. Vanessa, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, so mine isn't a customer specific one. It's more segment specific. So this was probably about 10 years ago. I was working at Cisco, and we were traditionally, we haven't done small business well. We had created a product catered to that market. And so we were looking on a way to execute and build a go-to-market around that. And so, what we're able to do is really go out and talk to partners in the territory, like in these small regional places, who understood the customer market that we were trying to target, who had the intimate relationships with that customer set, and really build a program around them, and how they go out and sell that solution to those customers that they already had those relationships with. And so, once again, we had to be very open about, how do we do this? Because we knew that they were the experts. We were the experts as far as the technology, but in terms of the go-to-market, they were the experts. And so we really leaned on them to help us understand how to help them sell our solution. So, that was a market segment rather, that we could not have branched into without those partners. They were literally our sales force and our marketing teams, and engineering resources to those customers. So, once again, partners are a great way to expand, into different market segments as well.
Yeah, I guess my example, it wasn't from someone on my team, but I did mentor some of the reps who led this sale. But 3 years ago, we closed HubSpot's biggest global account out of Latin America, of all places, and it was pretty awesome. We sold to a university system in Mexico, and this just ticked so many boxes. We ripped out like 14 instances of Oracle, and we do compete with Oracle, on the top end a little bit occasionally, but not too often. They're more of like a Fortune 100, 500 player, and we aim more at the mid-market. But it's kind of fun when you have like a David Goliath type of situation. So it was awesome to rip out a competitor, and not just one instance, but like 14 instances. Then also basically have under our ownership our largest global account by a sizable amount. But where channel comes in is that this was like probably, I can't believe I didn't remember this earlier when the question came up, the best example I've ever seen of multiple partners working together and an account rep really quarterbacking the deal well. So we had an implementation partner out of the US actually. So that was also another complexity where he worked with a channel that was out of his geographical area. So that took some massaging and internal collaboration. And then I believe because this is a university system with like 30 different campuses, up to like 5 local partners in different states of Mexico to do the implementation itself. So we had something like 6 partners involved. We had a collaboration between direct sales and channel sales, between sales in 2 different geographies. It was just a behemoth effort. And it was a year-long process too. Our typical sales process is under 30 days. And this was like a 1.5 year long sales process. So total outlier, but it was a pretty great story around channel and channel collaboration.
Thanks, Paul. That was a great way to wrap this up. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing your knowledge and insight with us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Startup Boston, for coordinating this. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Yeah, Susanna, anything else that we need to close out?
Thank you so much.